What's up, YouTube? This is Marty coming at you once again with my view of the world. Over the last few days, I have put out a couple videos talking about civil rights, talking about Candace Owens, and a couple of more people who align lines with Candace Owens. And I've got a lot of pushback. For one thing, I like to say this right here: for all these so-called conservatives who said that they're being discriminated against and being silenced through social media, I really don't believe that, because over the last couple of days, the videos I have put out, I get more negative feedback from those people than I get from people on the left or people in the center. Most of my feedback comes from people on the right or the far right, which no big deal to me, but I just want to let you know that you're not being silenced. Social media is not silencing you. So that's a myth. Now, today's topic, I want to talk about Barry Goldwater. And the reason I want to talk about Barry Goldwater, because like I said, I have put out videos over the last couple of days talking about civil rights, talking about how black people was affected, from the left and from the right, because it seems like Candace Owens and her group, the only one that said that the Republicans was good guys and the Democrats was bad guys. So my job is basically trying to point out the real truth, the real facts about what goes on behind the scene. Now, my thing also is, I just feel like we're doing our youth injustice when we're not putting out real facts, true facts. Well, let me take that back. We're not putting out the whole truth. We aren't putting out partial truths. So my thing is, I want to come back and put out real truths. So I want to back up a little bit. I want to back up until right after the Civil War, when Reconstruction took place. Now, like I say, Candace Owens and her group, they're right about that. Majority of blacks during Reconstruction was Republicans. But the reason why they was Republicans was because who was giving them freedom? Who was giving them, who was trying to make them a whole citizen? The Republican Party. That's why they was trying to vote Republican. Who could blame them for that? I wouldn't. I know if I was back then, I would vote Republican. Someone who just gave me my freedom, someone who was trying to give me full citizenship, yeah, most definitely, I'm gonna ride with the Republicans. Now, we're gonna skip from probably 1870 all the way up to 1930. 1930, FDR come along. And this is where the switch started to happen with blacks and the parties. Blacks at that point in time, like I said, was pretty much trying to vote Republican. I said try because in the South, they were having a hard time voting because of all the Jim Crow laws and stuff set up to keep them out of the polls. So they were having a hard time to vote. But they was trying to vote Republican up until that point. Now, in 1929, that's when the stock market crashed. After that point, that's when the Great Depression set in. So FDR came to power. People were having issues with jobs. People were having issues with food. People were having all kind of issues, period, in the country. So that's when blacks started to realize, what do we need? We need jobs. We need food. We need social programs. And that was something that FDR was offering. And also at that point in time, that's when the parties kind of flipped also. Because you got to realize also that at that point in time, the Republicans was not fiscal conservative. Republicans was more about big government at that point in time. And the Democrats was, prior to FDR, was about small government. The Democrats wanted, the federal government to stay out of the state issues. And that kind of goes to show, when people say that, no, they never did change. The Republican Party was always conservative, and the Democrat Party was always for big government. That's not true. Why do you think we had the Civil War? We had the Civil War because the southern states, which were Democratic states, did not want the federal government dictating to them what they can and what they could not do with slavery. And the Republican Party was trying to intervene in state issues. So that kind of proves that point. All right, now we go back to FDR. So FDR comes in. He have all these social programs trying to help the country recover from the Great Depression. So blacks started to vote Democrat at that point because they need those things that FDR is trying to give them. He's trying to give them the jobs, the food, and all this other stuff. So they start gradually voting Democrat for that. Now, not only blacks, because their countries kind of turned Democratic because FDR, we all know he was the last president to serve more than 2 terms. Because after he served his 2 terms, they changed the law and they restricted, they brought in term limits for the president, and which they should do for all of them now. They should even do for the Senate and also for the House of Representatives, but that's another subject. But so at this point in time, the country is pretty much voting Democrat. All right, now we're gonna skip from the 30s. We're gonna go all the way up to 1857, which that's when Truman brought up a civil rights bill, in which the Democrats, mostly Southern Democrats, filibustered. And there was one famous Democrat named Strom Thurmond who filibustered for 24 hours. The longest filibuster to date up until Rand Paul did it in 2013. So now, like I said, these are Southern Democrats. They don't like it. They don't want the civil rights. They don't want to give black civil rights. They don't want, they're not going for it. Understand it. But also, like I said, blacks are still voting Republicans and Democrats at this time. A high percentage of blacks now are really voting Democrats because of FDR, as I said before. Now, we're going to go from 1957 up to 1964. Now, this is really where you get kind of tricky at. And this is where Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and that little group of black so-called conservatives started to kind of miss out and not tell the whole truth. For one thing, Candace Owens saying that there was no such thing as a Southern strategy, which is BS. We all know if you dig into history, if you really got an open mind and you dig into history, you know there was a Southern strategy. Now, that Southern strategy was formed by Barry Goldwater, Arizona senator, who ran for president in 1964. Now, what Barry did was he played on the racial views of the South. And so what he did was he voted no. Barry Goldwater, a Republican president candidate, voted no for the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Then what he did was he had the Democrats, also the Southern Democrats, I said Southern Democrats, they all voted no for the Civil Rights Bill. When they voted no and Barry Goldwater voted no, that's how Barry Goldwater got in with the Southern Democrats. Now, as I said before, Southern Democrats was already socially conservative. Already socially conservatives already. So it wasn't like Barry had to really convince them to come on over to the Republican side. But at that time, due to the social and the cultural issues going on in the South, it was very easy for him to manipulate the Southern Democrats to vote Republican. And that's what he did. He played on their fears. He played on their racial tension in the South. And that's why they call it the Southern strategy, because that's what Barry Goldwater came up with. We're going to turn the South red by playing the race card. And that's what he did. So when Candace Owens and all those little minions of hers get out there and say there was no such thing as a Southern strategy, it's bullshit. Barry Goldwater is the founder, was the father of the Southern strategy. He's the main reason why the South is red today. He had all those Southern racist Democrats to start voting Republican. So when Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum is telling you, no, that didn't happen, there was no switch, there wasn't no Southern strategy, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. Barry Goldwater, look it up. These are not my words. Look it up. It take you 2 minutes to look it up and do research on Barry Goldwater. And he would tell you that there is a Southern strategy. Well, I'm sorry, there was a Southern strategy, and he's the one who fathered it. See, this is what's wrong with people today. We don't do research. We believe in every little thing that someone tells you. And that's what's wrong with the black community today. We let people like Candace Owens come in and influence us and change our whole outlook on history. And it shouldn't be that way, because she have no idea what she's saying. Candace Owens is making money off of giving bad history to the black community. That's what she's doing. It's in black and white. It takes 2 minutes to Google it. Google it and read it. Barry Goldwater is his name. And if you notice, none of them never talk about Barry Goldwater. Candace never brings up Barry Goldwater. She never talks about Barry Goldwater at all. And the reason why? Because she don't want you to know the truth. She don't want you to know that the Democrat Party is just as worse. I mean, the Republican Party is just as worse as the Democrat Party. They're one of the same. The same people who was voting for Democrats prior to 1960 are the same people who was voting for the Republican Party after 1964. They don't want to tell you that, but I'm telling you that. That's the truth. I'm not lying to you. I would not lie to you. And even if you thought I was lying to you, you can go look it up for yourself and read it for yourself. The Republican Party is no better than the Democrat Party. The parties did switch. The party switched twice. And what I mean by switching twice, after the Civil War, well, prior to the Civil War and after the Civil War, up until 1930, the Republican Party was for big government. And the Democrat Party was for small government. The Republican Party did not become fiscally conservative until 1930, when FDR came to power and wanted to implement all those social programs. That's when the Republican Party decided that they wanted to become fiscal conservative party. Now, the second switch was in 1964, when it came to the Southern strategy of Barry Goldwater, the founder and father of that movement, flipped the South to red. That is factual history. So don't let Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, or any of those other people tell you different. History is history. You cannot change history with words. I just ask you to do your research. That's all I ask. Do your own research. Use your own mind. Think for yourself. And you'll learn more than being a robot for some people like Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and Turning Point USA. Do your own research.